In this video, I'm going to share with you a pretty unique recording journey. Hey, it's Paul Tobey from jazzmental.com. Thanks for joining me for another one of my tutorials. I recently recorded this CD called It's Time right here in my home studio in Niagara-on-the-Lake. For other recordings that I've done in the past, I've basically left it up to the studio engineers to record and mix and send it off for mastering, and that's a pretty common process. So in this video, I'm gonna play a sample of the final versions from two different recording studios that I took my raw files to get edited and mixed, and then I'm gonna play you the one that I did myself, which is the one we ultimately ended up going with. So I want you to stick around to see how I took matters into my own hands, got some affordable software, and some studio monitors that I purchased online for $400. What you will learn about this process will not only shock you, but it will save you thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in studio fees, and will get you a product that you can absolutely be proud of. All right, let's get down to it and do a little listening. The sample track that we're going to use to compare is Over the Rainbow. It's actually the first track on this CD. Now, the first studio that I went into was run by a jazz musician. He's a jazz drummer, and he actually has a piano in his studio, so he's used to recording piano. And he mixed the entire album, then sent it off to Nashville for the final mastering process. All in all, it cost around $5,000 to do this. And while that might not seem like a lot of money, keep in mind, this is a solo piano recording, not an entire ensemble. All of the songs on this album were recorded right here on the same piano with the same microphones and the same setup. So I'm assuming that once the engineer got a mix from the first recording, he would apply that to the rest of the album and make some small tweaks for each of the tunes. Okay, let's give it a listen. You're gonna have to open your ears a little bit and turn up your volume if that helps. If you're listening on a laptop or computer speakers or even a cell phone, you're probably not going to hear the differences between each of the samples. But if you have some good speakers or some great headphones, you're probably going to clearly hear the differences. All right, let's play the first track now. Some things that I noticed in that first version is that it seemed to me to be over-processed. The sound wasn't as clear as it should be. There was a bit too much reverb, and the piano sounded quite distant. And it was really not the sound that I was looking for. Now, I trust that you heard it okay and were able to make some mental notes, because now we're going to move on to the second version. I took that previous version to another studio. I played it for them and they didn't like it either. So they decided to completely mix it using the raw recording tracks. And then once they mixed a stereo version, they were going to turn it into a Dolby Atmos surround sound experience. Now, the cost for this was a little bit less than the first studio, but it was still pretty significant. All right, let's give this track a listen. Before we get back to our Pro Mix versus DIY tutorial, I wanted to take a moment and express my heartfelt gratitude to all the incredible music lovers who support this channel. Your purchases on jazzmental.com, whether it's sheet music or CDs, directly help me keep these jazz tutorials coming. And a huge thank you to everyone who purchased my CD, It's Time. Your support means the world to me. If you'd like to buy this CD or check out some of the sheet music or even make a donation, head on over to jazzmental.com. And don't forget to join me every Saturday morning for our live stream masterclasses right here on YouTube at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Could you hear the difference between that track and the first one? I mean, there was a pretty significant difference here. Imagine taking your tracks to two different studios and getting two completely different products. To me, this one sounded a bit more hollow. The reverb was a little warmer, but overall, I'm still not convinced that this is the piano sound coming from this piano. I mean, I wanted a really authentic sound. So now let's move on to the third sample, which is the one that I mixed. I want you to hang around until after we play this version because I'm going to talk about the differences between it and the first two and what I really like about it. And then I'm going to show you what I did inside the recording software with the effects and other plugins to create this specific sound. So did you hear the difference between that one and the first two and why we ultimately went with it? I mean, to me, the sound is more clear. There's no perceptible noise. The reverb is a bit long, but it's certainly not muddy. And there's definitely a dynamic range that you can hear. But again, it's just about getting a clear and precise recording that sounds like this instrument that sits behind me. Okay, let's hop over to the computer and I'm going to run you through the effects chain that I used to create this sound. Here we are inside Reaper. This is the digital audio workstation software that I used for this project. It's fairly inexpensive software and it works really well. I've basically got a different channel for each track of the album. You can see there's Over the Rainbow, then Caminar, then Take 5. If you scroll down here, you can see the rest of them and they're all in sequential order so that I can export it out as one project and turn it into a CD. Now let's go to the first track, which is Over the Rainbow. That's the one that we've been listening to on this album. Let's expand it a little bit and then just hit the space bar and you can hear it play. Clearly, it sounds the same as the last one we listened to. That's because it is. This is the master project in which we exported that file. Now, the most important thing here is that we've got an effects chain on this raw recording. Basically, what we're doing is importing this WAV file and then adding effects to it. So here are our effects here. The effects chain has to be in the right order. So the first thing you would do is work on EQ or equalization. And then the next thing would be to add some compression. And then finally, any type of reverb and room sound that you want to create. So first we've added a high pass filter, which basically eliminates any low end frequencies that are unwanted, like a low hum or maybe even some muddiness. Then I added a low pass filter, which does the opposite. It takes away some of the high end frequencies that you don't want, perhaps some hissing or any room noise that you get. So that's really important. Then next, what you want to do, and this is probably the most important part, is you want to create notch filters with certain unwanted frequencies. You can see that there's like 14 different frequencies here that we're reducing slightly that create a certain type of noise. Now, it would take a lot of time to explain how I did this, but basically you want to use a combination of your ears and the software to figure out where these frequencies are and basically eliminate a portion of them. Then you move on to the overall EQ of that particular track. In this case, you can see that we're raising the low end a little bit. That's because it's a solo piano recording. We don't have any bass here. And then mid to high range frequencies are basically staying the same. And then on top of that, we're adding another equalizer. This is the Clairphonic VST plugin. It's actually free. And what it does is it adds a bit of focus and clarity to the sound. I think this is one of the things that was missing from the recordings that were done by the professional studios. So this one worked really well. And then after that, we added a 3:1 compression ratio. That means that for every 3 dB above a threshold, it's basically going to add 1 dB to the overall volume. And the purpose of this is to kind of even out the dynamic range. So if you've got really loud parts and really soft parts, it kind of evens them out a little bit. And then finally, we've got reverb. This is an Aural River reverb. It's also a free VST plugin. So we've added a piano room preset, and I've made some alterations to make the length of the reverb a little bit longer, but lower the volume of the reverb. So this takes out the muddiness, but also gives a nice warm room sound. And then once you've done that, basically what you do is you apply those same plugins to every track on the CD, as some might be a different dynamic range, some might be ballads, some might be fast swing. And basically what you're trying to do is copy the same sounds, but then make slight changes to the dynamic range and to the notch filters and basically all of the things that we've talked about so far. And then finally, on all of the tracks, what you want to do is add a couple of things. So let's take a look at the effects chain for the master channel. And this would include an EQ at about 357, 358 Hertz. So the reason to reduce this frequency in the EQ is to basically remove any muddiness from the recording. I mean, the room is not a true studio room. It's not all padded walls. So there is some room sound. And basically what you're trying to do is get more clarity by reducing any room sound that exists. And then I'm adding what's called a limiter. With this limiter, I'm raising the volume of all of the tracks evenly to get a LUFS level of like -14. And you can see there's a loudness meter here. So if you played the track or the entire recording, you want to get a LUFS level that's -14 to -18, somewhere in there. -14 for digital, -16 for LP, you get the idea. So it's important to use a limiter to raise the overall sound to a maximum dB, and then use this loudness meter to monitor the LUFS levels. And that's basically it. And once you've done that, it's a good idea then to listen to the entire recording several times, maybe like 100 is how many I listen to it. And if we were to go down here and check out some of the other recordings, you just basically can go through them one at a time. Like this one, take 5. And you can listen to it as much as you want and make small modifications to each track. If you're looking to save money on your next release as far as the recording process and mixing and mastering goes, then I highly recommend my online course, Pro Piano Production from Studio to Release. In this course, you'll learn the most cost-effective ways to purchase and set up your own recording gear, including exactly how to mic your piano with the mics in the right position, and how to set up your digital interface to get the most clean recording possible. And I'm also going to talk about how to record with Reaper or really any digital audio workstation that you choose. Then we'll talk about the editing and mixing process, including how to choose the right VST effects and the proper order for your digital effects chain to get the best sound. And I'm going to give you a lot of detail on how to set up each effect. What are the settings for each? For example, how to EQ properly your particular instrument. And then I'm going to help you master it and create a DDR, which you can send to a printing service company for a CD or an LP. And I'll even show you how to upload your new release to TuneCore to get it out to all the digital platforms. Details for this course can be found in the link up here in the corner or in the description below. And as an additional incentive to take this course, I'm going to display a coupon code on your screen right now to get this course at 50% off the retail price. How cool is that?